So Bo, it is so exciting to have you here in Grand Rapids, and so welcome.
Well, thank you very much.
Well, I read your book a couple years ago, and it resonated with me on many levels. One, I believe that Grand Rapids as a city is a small giant, but I believe what makes us a small giant is it's the commitment to people, and it's all of the companies that we have in our community. So when I read your book, I found myself thinking, we have so many companies who are small giants right here in our own city, and we need to elevate them, and we need to really appreciate their commitment to people and community and the environment.
Right.
And so I selected the book as my Mayor's Book of the Year this year, and gave out hundreds of copies. Worked with Local
honored.
First.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So for people who haven't had a chance to read your book, what are the core messages that you were trying to get across in the book?
Well, it originally started out that I was focused around one particular quality, which was something, I started at Inc. magazine in 1983, which was a very important time in the American economy. It was really the whole birth of the entrepreneurial economy. And there were companies that are today household names that I got to know, and I got to know their leaders when they were really quite young. And what I noticed was that the best of them it wasn't just that they were successful, but they had some special quality that you could sense if you spent any time around them. Talking to their employees, talking to their customers. I didn't have a word for it back then, but I do now. It's what I call mojo, which I mean as the business equivalent of charisma.
Yeah.
And I realized with Zingerman's that this was a company that had that quality, and that one of the things that I was looking for when I went out to look for these companies was companies that had that quality of, of this business charisma, mojo. And my question was, well, where did it come from? And how had they been able to keep it? Because a lot of the companies that had it back in the early 1980s lost it as they grew bigger. And so I decided to look at the qualities that they had in common. And I wound up coming up with 5 or 6 of them.
Well, I agree. I think we have a lot of companies with mojo here in Grand Rapids. So you're going to have a message today for businesses, but also for the community. So as a consumer, what value do you think it is? What value would you, or I should say, what advice would you give to a consumer about when they're making decisions? What should they look for in a company? Like, how do they identify those companies with mojo?
The main thing, I would sort of step back and take a bigger look at this, because when companies, a company, particularly the kind of companies that I'm writing about in Small Giants, they have an impact that goes far beyond the economic sphere. They play a major role in the communities. They sort of determine the whole activity, the atmosphere of the community. And when companies don't hold themselves to a high standard, it has ramifications that go well beyond the economic sphere, as we've unfortunately seen a few times in the last 20 years. These are companies that hold themselves to the highest standards. They really feel that their responsibility is to provide great places to work for their employees, to be great citizens of their community, which in most cases means giving back to their communities, but it also means that the community sort of shape their personality. And when you have companies like that, they are the base. They create the texture of life in America, and those are the companies who it's very important to support, because like every business, they've got to make money. Otherwise they go out of business. And so I would say that from the point of view of a consumer, you want to look around, and if there are companies that are really playing an important role in the community, it's important to support those companies.
Yeah, that's great advice. So I'm curious, when you were writing the book and researching and getting to know these companies and these leaders, was there anything that really surprised you?
I was inspired by the businesses inspired me, and my job was to try and put that down on paper so that other people could sort of share that inspiration.
Nice.
And that's really what came out of that's how Small Giants came about.
Nice. So one last question. You are still writing and researching and very active in the field. So tell me about what you're working on now.
Well, I moved from Inc. to Forbes about 2 years ago because my former editor at Inc. magazine, who left Inc. and then he'd become the editor of the New York Times Small Business and Entrepreneurship section, and then he'd been hired by Forbes to sort of revive their coverage of entrepreneurship and small businesses. And he made me an offer I couldn't refuse, and I made the switch over to Forbes. And for the last 2 years, we've been bringing out a list of 25 of the best small companies in America that are small giants.
Nice.
And using the same criteria that I used when I chose the companies for my book. And basically every year, I mean, there are a lot of these companies around. I mean, they're not your normal companies. They're not companies that you necessarily run into every day, but there are a lot, and there are a lot, frankly, here in Grand Rapids. So I've been going around telling people, I run into various, last day or so, I've been running into people who have what strike me as really great companies, and I've been encouraging them to nominate themselves for this list. And we'll be making the selection probably in January or something like that. And so we need to get the nominations in.
Well, I really, what a joy it is to have you here. We welcome you to Grand Rapids.
Well, the joy is mine. I have to say that from what I know about Grand Rapids and Western Michigan in general, it's appropriate.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
You're welcome.